Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here doing a Throwback Thursday review for Army of Darkness. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it last week, so I'm doing it this week. And I was thinking about doing like what I consider like a double feature where I just do two Throwback Thursday reviews. But I decided I'll just do this one, and I won't like double up or anything. I'll just do this. And then next week I will be doing my Throwback Thursday review for the remake. Even though it's technically not, 10 years or older, I'll just throw it in with this. But Army of Darkness, of course, the third film in the Evil Dead trilogy. Definitely the funniest one. Definitely more comedy-based, not really horror-based. Outside of, like, a couple of sequences you could kind of consider, like, scary or at least somewhat creepy. Like, when he goes up to the books in the beginning, I feel like that scene starts off kind of creepy, and then of course once he gets to like touching the books and everything, and like there's a book biting his hand and stretching his face, I was like, okay, it's full comedy again. But when he's traveling alone and it's like the creepy forest and stuff, I was like, okay, that's like a little creepy, and then it instantly goes right back to the comedy and the Klaatu Ratu thing. So I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of that whole movie. But really enjoyed Army of Darkness. I mentioned this in my Throwback Thursday review for Evil Dead 2. The one thing that bugs me about this entire film is that they changed the ending of Evil Dead 2. Because at the end of that, he falls out of the sky, he falls with his car, and we find out like, oh, Ash was actually the guy they talk about in the Necronomicon, like that little page where it's like a random person. It's like this person, actually banished all the Deadites in the past, and Ash is like, oh, he didn't do that great of a job then. And at the end of that movie, he's thrown back in time and he realizes he was the one, back in the day that banished all the Deadites. So, it's like they're cheering him and stuff and he's freaking out. He's like, no. And then this movie starts up and it's like the exact opposite of that, where as soon as he gets up, he's arrested. Or, I can't really say arrested, but, he's taken captive. And it was like, that always bugged me. I don't know why that bugged me so much. It was just like, it's always bugged me. Like, it would have been cool to see that actually keep going. And I feel like it still could have gone exactly the same way that it did, where it's like, just add in, them taking, because it was like some duke or whatever from this other encampment that was like, going up against the people. And it was like, just have them as they're traveling, and then that's when Ash and this, car fall out of the sky. And it's just like, do the same thing. Like, they praise him, and then they're like, hey, this is this person. And then you have like the one dude who is trying to be with the main girl in the movie, and he was like kind of a douchebag and everything. And they still could have gone the same way. It's like, I don't trust him and everything like that. And then just throw him in the pit, and then the same movie, plays out. I feel like it easily could have worked that exact same way, even if he was being praised by most people. That's how movies work anyway. It's always like a million people say one thing, and then like one character who actually matters will say something the opposite, and then everyone's just like, yeah, he's right. That one person who's like the opposite of everyone else is correct. So it would have made sense because it's a movie. But gets captured with a couple other people. He's freaking out. He's like, crap, I'm stuck in the past. What the f am I going to do? Gets thrown into this pit with the Deadite, and it was pretty cool. I actually like that opening sequence where he has to fight the Deadite, like in the little small pit. So I always thought that was a cool sequence. He actually does end up getting his chainsaw from like the mage, who actually believes that he truly is, the person. Kind of destined to help them defeat the Deadites. So he gives them the chainsaw, and they have the cool sequence where he like jumps up and it clicks onto his hand, and he takes her out. So he takes her out. Crazy blood just like spouts up through the sky and everything, natural for this film. And so once he gets out, it's like, all right, that's where we get the boomstick line, which is always great. And that's when things start to kind of build up for him. He gets the the magical hand that somehow works, where they just make him a metal magic hand, and then he starts dealing with helping these people with the Deadites, and that's where things start to get really interesting, because it's like, look, don't really care about any of you. He's a bit of a dick. Ash is definitely a dick to these people in the beginning, where it's like, first off, he's already upset. He's been thrown back in time, so I get that. First thing they do is throw him in the pit to kill him. And then after that is like, you guys are dicks. You threw me in a pit, to leave me to die. And, it's just like, I'm better than everybody because I'm from the future. I have a car and this and that. And also, he's much more familiar with the Deadites and stuff. So, he's kind of a dick to them in the beginning. Of course, naturally over time, he grows to, well, he already liked the girl from the beginning, but he was a dick to her. But over time, he decides he will actually help people because it will allow him to get back to his present time. That's where we get the Necronomicon scene, where, Klaatu Barata Nikto is what he's supposed to say, which was I didn't know this was a reference at the time, but that was a reference to The Day the Earth Stood Still, I believe was the movie. Like, it's a reference from a super, super old alien film. It's Klaatu Barata Nikto, or Verata, I believe. I can't really remember, but we get the books. He gets the wrong book, or he gets the right book, but doesn't say the code, like say the phrase like he's supposed to. So of course the Deadites fully rise after that because he screwed up, and then it's all chaos after that. Him having the evil clone, people getting turned into Deadites, the mini Ashes, the scene where he has to fight them and stuff. I always thought was a crazy sequence, especially the one that like goes down his throat. Always thought that was the craziest thing, and in real life I don't think he'd be talking for the rest of the movie because that was like boiling hot water and he just poured it down his mouth to kill it. And I'm like, I don't think he'd be talking normal for the rest of the film if it was actually that hot in real life. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't think that's how that would work. He also could have just drank anything and just drowned it. But, the boiling hot thing makes it faster. So he does that, thinks it's all over, and then he starts growing a head, and then there's another body, and then there's another Ash. So we have Evil Ash, which he thought he took care of, goes back to the village, which is another one of my favorite sequences when he's freaking out, and everybody's like, yeah, you did it, because they all assume he did it. He's like, yeah, great, get the fuck out of my face. And that was always one of my favorite things when he said that, and it just made me laugh so hard when he did that, and he just like pushes the dude right out of his face, and I just thought that was so funny. So everything's fine, for a little bit, and then all hell breaks loose, almost literally, and then you got the skeletons marching and stuff, and you have Evil Ash, and then he wants to make the main female character into, like, his evil queen, which he does for a little bit. Ash fixes up his car to have, like, crazy blades on the front, and they're fighting off all the Deadites. The dude that he rescued from the beginning, who he allowed to escape after, he got pissed off at everyone else for throwing him into a pit, he's like, let this dude go, so he was able to actually have him come back in the end to help them out. So that was kind of cool, like they team up and it's like, we have much bigger issues than your people versus these people. Like, we got to kill these demons off or we're all screwed. So, of course, they all team up. He ends up defeating his evil version. He, stops the Deadites and everything goes back to normal. He stops the Deadites, he gets the girl, for a little bit, and then it's like, all right, well, I got to go back to my own time. He takes his, his little thing. In the original ending, for anyone who may not know this by this point, in the original ending, he took too many drops of that solution and he went to sleep longer than he was supposed to, and when he woke up it was a post-apocalyptic world, and it was really weird because if I remember right, the scene where he's, he freaks out, he's like in London. Well, I guess I don't know, it's weird. It looked like he was in London because I swear it looked like the tower that has Big Ben. That's what it looked like to me. Somewhere like on the ground I was like, that looks like the Tower of Big Ben to me. So I don't know if that's where he was supposed to be, but obviously he was thrown through time. He could have been anywhere on the planet. But that was the original ending, and they changed it to be kind of the ending that it is now, where of course he ends up getting back to his normal time, and it actually fades into that from him sleeping to telling the story of the actual entire film to this woman at S-Mart. It was like, yep, I took the drops and then I came back to my own time. And after that, woman's talking to him and stuff, and then a Deadite shows up, he kills it, and then he actually does get the random girl at the end of the film, and everything's cool. And just an interesting ending, and of course that leads to, current day with Ash versus Evil Dead and everything. But I've always liked this movie. It's always been the one where it's like they get funnier and funnier as they go on, and this is definitely the funniest of the trio. And it's still really good. It's just that thing where, especially with it being Army of Darkness, it is very different. It's not really Evil Dead. It literally is the Army of Darkness. It's very different than just, oh, they're trapped in this cabin, and there are a couple of Deadites, or the essence, that creates Deadites coming to, possess them or whatever. It's the Army of Deadites. It's the Army of Darkness. So it makes sense. I always wondered why they didn't actually call it Evil Dead 3 with Army of Darkness as, like, the subtitle, but I just always thought that was interesting. So I still, I love the film. Like I said, it's not like it's a bad film or anything. It's just very different from the other two films because it's not like, Evil Dead. It's really, Army of Darkness and very comedic and stuff compared to the first two movies, which are definitely more horror based, and then the second one gets like a horror with a lot of the comedy in it, and then this one is like full on comedy. So definitely different than the other two, but still very entertaining. It's still very fun to watch. Like, how is Ash, after what he went through in the first two films, how's this going to play out? What's going to happen here? What's he going to do with not exactly the origins of the Deadites, but definitely a much earlier version of the Deadites when they're not just, able to just pop out of nowhere when you read a passage from a book. It's like they're just out, but not in full power. So it's kind of like a weird balance where it's like they can attack at any point, but they still aren't really that strong until, of course, the Necronomicon comes in and he removes it, and then that allows for it to kind of free the Deadites because he doesn't say the correct thing. So it was kind of interesting to watch that story play out, like where, once again in the very beginning, after he actually it's like right before he gets his hand when he kills that first Deadite that shows up within like the little encampment in the castle. And it shows up. It's still like just the other two movies where a random person will get possessed, he takes it out, and it's like that can happen at any point, but they still aren't as powerful because there's still so many people to fight against the Deadites and to fight against this magical evil. So it was an interesting way to kind of advance the story of the Deadites and just how it plays out during obviously a totally different time period. But I always really enjoyed it, and getting to see Ash literally the man out of time thrown backwards and then dealing with the Deadites as like this big chapter in history where he banished them for a super long time. Of course, until the record is played and the Deadites are allowed to kind of go free again in the very first film. So always loved that idea. Always, I always think about that original ending where he does take too many drops and he goes to sleep for too long. But I'm glad they changed that. I'm glad that allow, especially because if they never changed it and that was the ending, they couldn't do like Ash versus Evil Dead. They couldn't say like, oh, the ending you see on TV and stuff, that's the canonical ending, which it has to be at this point. Even if the other ending was the original ending, this has to be the canonical ending because we have Ash versus Evil Dead. Or technically, it doesn't have to be. They can still say like Ash versus Evil Dead doesn't count as canon, but I don't think that's the case. I think we're going to say Ash vs. Evil Dead is canon, which means the ending where he, goes too far in the future is no longer canon. But I always thought that was cool. I always liked that idea. It's that darker ending where it's like, oh man, that's kind of effed up after everything he went through. And it kind of fits, and that's why I always thought, like, I kind of get it, but I am glad it changed because it's like, I get why that works so well for these movies because he's gone through the first film. Then he almost relives the first film in the second film, and then it's even worse. He has to chop his hand off. He has to deal with more people. He's considered the bad guy when the other people first show up at the cabin in the sequel. So it just gets worse and worse. He's thrown back in time. Everything seems to work. He defeats the Deadites. He gets all the people to work together from different encampments and everything, and then the Deadites are gone. It's like, great, Deadites are gone. You guys are working together. I have, like, not really the serum, but like these drops or whatever to make me sleep so that I can wake up in my time. And then he goes too far and he just has something else crappy happen to him. And it's like, it almost works because of the films being just Ash getting bombarded by the worst situations that you wouldn't even imagine because it's all demon and magic based. It's like, definitely fits, but it's like, I just want the dude to have a happy ending. So I was glad that they, changed it where he goes to, ultimately it works and he's just working at S-Mart again. And, he still had like, the magic metal hand and everything, which went away. In Ash vs. Evil Dead, he didn't have it anymore. And I would have loved to have seen that. I think they may have made a reference to it. I don't really remember now because that was like 2 years ago when the first season came out. I don't remember. But yeah, I always enjoyed this movie, and it's just interesting seeing like the change and evolution of this character and what he had to deal with going through 3 films. It's just very interesting. So always enjoyed the movie. Definitely want to know what you guys think about Army of Darkness / Evil Dead 3. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite moments from the film, your least favorite moments. I would love to know what you guys think about the original ending. Would you prefer if Ash went into like the post-apocalyptic future and stuff like that? Or do you guys prefer the ending that we have, which is, allowed the series to now go into, the TV series with Ash versus Evil Dead? We'll love to know which ending you guys prefer, which one you think fits better. Like I said, I guess the original ending does fit better. It definitely makes sense for just Ash's character, where like every time something seems to work, it goes badly. Even the end of the first movie is literally like, oh man, I made it through the night. I had to do all these crazy things to survive, against these demons, taking over my friends and family. And then right at the end was like, whew, it's over. He gets picked up by the essence and then turned into a monster at the end of the first movie. So, it just fits. It's that same sort of essence with the ending, the original ending to the third film. And it's like, yeah, that totally works. And the actual ending to the second film, it's just, tragedy after tragedy for him after he goes through all the madness. It's like, whew, I'm out. And then it's just like, nope, you're thrown into another crazy situation. So I think the original ending fits better, personally. I still prefer the ending that we have, because it's like, you just want a happy ending sometimes. When you see a character go through so much crap, it's like, I just want the dude to get a break. So I think the original ending fits better, but I definitely prefer the ending that we have. But we'd love to know, which one you guys prefer, which one you think fits better as well. Your reasoning for why you might think the the alternate ending actually fits better for the story and everything like that. And just in general, want to know what you guys think about the film. Like I said, favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. What do you think, for sure, of the comedy aspect, where it's, you know, the funniest one is definitely comedy over horror. It's not like the second movie where it definitely blends them together, and the first one was more horror, the most, you know, horror of all the three. So we'd love to know how you guys feel about the comedic element kind of being at the forefront compared to just being a part of the film. And like I said, you know, the endings and what you think of the film in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.